Gloves here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the first worksheet. We're going to be taking a look at augmented and diminished intervals and also harmonic and melodic intervals. So we're going to add a little bit to our vocabulary, and also you'll have a worksheet so you can go and practice and interact with MuseScore, get a little bit used to it. So a quick note on the worksheets. The worksheets will be available in a download in the description. I will be updating that download as I add more. It will include either an example exercise. I may ask you to just create your own. That'll mostly be composition exercises. So for example, I've constructed here an interval exercise, a basic one, and then there will be an advanced one, probably, and maybe even more to come. This download will be updated. So at the beginning, if you're watching this as these videos are being created, then you will experience downloading the same thing multiple times, but there will be new files each time. If you get this at the end, it'll be really convenient all in one file. So here we're going to take a look. Let's take a look at the two basic forms of intervals we can have. We can have melodic intervals and we can have harmonic intervals. So a melodic interval is an interval who takes place at different times. They are a relationship between two intervals. And when we write, we will be writing there. We will need to be aware of both harmonic and melodic intervals, especially in part writing. A lot of new students will get all hung up in the harmonic intervals, but they'll forget about the melodic stuff, and they'll write like something like a parallel fifth or a parallel octave that's sort of encoded, and they're just not used to seeing that stuff yet, so it can really confuse them. So what we're going to do is we are going to first, let's look at a harmonic interval. So a harmonic interval is played at the same time. So you can think of it as like a chord, kind of. So here I have two notes being played at the same time. This is considered a harmonic interval. If I were to make it a note being played at one time and then it goes to another note, like so here I have a note and it goes to another note, this distance is a melodic interval. So it makes sense because melodies, are sung across a span of time, while harmonics can be played at the same time. So it makes sense that way too. So that's the harmonic and melodic interval. It's pretty straightforward. So when we make chords, we're going to be constructing a harmonic interval. When we're making broken chords like arpeggios, or maybe we're just writing out melodies, anything that goes from one note to another note over time, we'll be constructing melodic intervals. It's just sort of something you should just be aware of as a term. It'll usually be pretty straightforward when you're dealing with one. So now let's take a look. I'm going to ask you in this exercise to be using harmonic intervals. So intervals at the same time. So you'll be expected to be putting down whole notes in this exercise. Other exercises will be melodic intervals. Usually I won't have to specify this, so it'll be pretty obvious what you should do. So, okay, now let's take a look at augmented and diminished. So I talked a little bit about major and minor and how one's lowered a half step, one's raised a half step. But then we add these things called perfect intervals. And perfect is not quite, it's like, what do you do when you lower a perfect interval? Because they can't be major and they can't be minor. So instead, when we lower them, we call them diminished. And it's pretty easy because you're diminishing them. They're getting smaller. So you can diminish them, and then when you raise them, you can augment them. So you will augment and diminish perfect intervals. So if I were to say, like, for example, let's say I gave you an F, and I said, make a interval that is a perfect, let's get rid of this note. Make an interval from this F that is a augmented fifth. Let's say that I asked you to do that. Well, okay, so we'll look at this and we'll say, okay, so we need to go 5 up. So we'll start on F and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so, or let me do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sorry. It's a C, okay? It's a C, but let's really quick, because I counted it sort of funny. I just wanted to be extra clear. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my mouse just jumps around a bit. So we have a 5. So there we go, F to C. And we say, okay, that's 5 away, so it's got to be that. But you say augmented fifth. So let's see what this already is. Like, is it already an augmented fifth? Well, let's take a look. So I'm going to exit note entry mode, come down here and say unison, minor, second, minor, third, major, third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth. And so we say, oh, this is a perfect fifth. So to make it an augmented fifth, I would have to raise it to become a minor 6 or a augmented fifth. So that's another takeaway. We notice that these things are technically another interval, like they have an interval in another name, but because this is a C, that defines the 5 because it's 5 away. So if we raise it once, like so, whoops, I'm moving the stem, not the note. Now it is an augmented fifth. Let's say I said make it a diminished fifth. Well, in this case, this is sort of a weird interval, diminished fifths. But what we would do is we'd take the F, right? And we need to be 5 away. So it would have to be, that's a perfect fifth. If we want to make it diminished, we'll put a flat on it. Now it's been lowered a half step. Now it's a diminished fifth. This gives rise to some weirder named intervals. And so you can have things like double diminished intervals, meaning it was lowered 2 half steps. You have things like double flats, double sharps, just weird stuff can come up. And the reason they come up is because of the way we write our notes. But it gives us a structure to work with, so it's valuable to know this information. So for example, let's say that you can have things like, let's do that first one I said that was weird in the first video on intervals. So let's go down to a C, and then I said, here's a C sharp, and I said this wasn't a minor second, but it sure does look like a minor second because we go unison, minor second. But that is a C sharp, but it's not gone up 2. So we can't call it a minor second because it hasn't risen. It would have to go up and go like that. Then it's gone 1, 2. Because we count with the note that we start on. That counts as 1. So what is this? Well, this is the same note, right? So it's a unison, but it's been raised a half step. So you would call this an augmented second. So these intervals come up way less, but you need to know about them because they will pop up occasionally in just some circumstances. Some scales invoke these intervals a little bit more. So you just need to know that these naming conventions can happen. You're not going to be worrying about them right now. We're at a basic level, but you need to be able to identify them and know what they're called. So whenever you have something that sort of goes outside the range of like a major third, like let's say, for example, we did a major third. So we'll go to E. And then I said, make this an augmented third. Like, that's kind of weird. Well, to make it an augmented third, you would sharp it. Let's say I said, make it a double augmented third. And so right now it's already major, and now it's augmented. So to make it double augmented, we would use a double sharp, which looks like this X. Let's say I said, make it a minor third. Okay, so make it flat. Okay, so we're staying, so that's where the 3, see, the 3 is consistent in all of these things. So it's a third. Let's say I said, make it a diminished third. And so for that, you would need a double flat. So you could keep going. You could have all sorts of flats. I mean, it's not really worth it a lot of times. These things exist for those occasions where they are, necessary. I don't know why that was such a weird thing to say. So anyways, okay, cool. So that's augmented and diminished. So we can get these sort of weird intervals. It's a little more advanced. So let's go ahead and do our exercise. This one's called basic intervals. We're going to be learning our basic intervals still. So your exercise, you'll have this, and we'll say intervals basic. You'll open it up, and I have some instructions here. I said, construct each interval from the given base note. Oh, you know what? Let me put in, I want to talk about one more thing before we move on, just because of this. So I said from the given base note, and you might be going, why would you say this given base note part? Like, why is that important? Well, there's this thing called the rule of 9. And so an interval being approached from whenever you invert an interval, and inverting an interval means you take the note above it, harmonic, melodic, whichever one, and you flip it down. Well, you've just inverted that interval, and whatever that inversion will be, will equal to 9. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at, I just got bit by a mosquito. Gosh, dang it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's do a harmonic interval. That's the easiest way to see this. So let's move over. Okay, so we're going to put down a, 6, 7, whatever it is. Let's put down just a fifth. So C to G. No, let's put down a third. We'll stay consistent. So we have C to E, a major third. So that's 3. Whenever you invert it, meaning you lower the interval an octave. So right now, the E is on top. If we put the E below, it will flip to whatever equals 9. So 3 plus what equals 9? Well, that would be 6, right? So it's going to become a 6. If it was major, now it'll be minor. If it's perfect, it stays perfect. So that's pretty easy to remember. So if I invert this interval, so if I approach it, instead of going from C to E, if I approach it from E to C, it will now become a minor 6 because 3 plus 6 is 9. So let's go ahead. Let's look at that. So I'll put it down to E. So here's E natural. And I look at this and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I say, hey, this is a 6. And if you count out the intervals, you will find out that it is indeed a minor 6. Let's do another one. So let's say that I gave you an E to F. So that's a perfect fourth. So a perfect fourth will remain perfect, but it will still sum to 9. So this will become a perfect fifth. And then a perfect fifth inverted will become a perfect fourth. So pretty handy dandy. So let's do that. So we say, okay, going up 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's definitely a perfect fourth, and you can count it out on the keyboard. And so now let's move this down an octave. I believe you can hit Control down. So if you hit Control down, it'll move your selected note down an octave. So it's an easier way of doing things. So now it's down. Let's check what the interval is. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We go this rule of 9 thing, man. Let's do another one. Just so we're clear. Let's do like a second. So let's do up to a D. So right now this is a major second because we have, a whole step. That's another term you'll hear tossed around. We could talk about all these intervals in terms of whole steps. And if you work in a program like Renoise, that's actually, you have to do things like that. So if you want to use like arpeggiation tools and stuff that they provide, you will offset everything in half steps. So I never even thought about doing a video for that. Probably should. But anyways, we'll look at that. I'll consider that. But basically, one move is a half step when you go to the next key. When you go 2 keys, that's a whole step. It'll come up a lot more when we talk about scales naturally. So, okay, we have a second here, right? Well, 7 plus 2 is 9. So if we flip this, right now it's a major second. So if we flip it, it'll become minor because it was major. So it'll become minor, and it will become 7 because 2 plus 7 is 9. So let's go ahead and flip it. So we'll go down. And so, we have D to C, and that's a 7. It's easier to think of this one in octaves than counting, but let's count. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we go, holy smokes, it's a 7. And then we say, is it major or minor? And you look and you say, well, the C is sharp in a D major scale, which is the whole scale thing I was talking about, because I don't want to do the minor major thing all the way up to the 7th. And so we say, oh, well, this is flat, so it is indeed a minor 7. Well, not flat, it's natural, but it's been lowered a half step. So I'll do it for you. So here we go. We start on D, right? And go minor second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth, minor 6, major 6, minor 7. We're like, oh my gosh. So that's the rule of 9, a handy dandy rule to know about. So that's some more advanced interval topics, stuff you're going to want to know about because they can speed up the process. So like the rule of 9, they'll speed up things in ways. Sometimes it's just a handy thing to know about. It's like a mental trick you can do. So, okay. So it flips minor to major, and it changes the sign. So let's go ahead, exit note mode. Let's delete these notes. Let's just delete this measure. Okay, cool. So now let's go ahead and do some of this. So we say, okay, let's do one in the bass clef. So this is an F, and it asks us to form a perfect fifth. Oh, we've already done that. Let's do one that you haven't done. Okay, so here is an E, and so we say E, and it wants us to form a minor second. So we go, okay, E, I must add a note, and so let's go note entry mode, and let's go, where is that thing I just had? Here it is. And then we go up 1, right, because we're going to second, so I'll add 1, and then I say, see, it's a rather dissonant interval, and then I say, well, this is a minor second, so let's check E. So we say E, a minor second up from B, from E, would be an F natural. And what we've put down is an F natural. So we're good. We're done. That's a minor second. And then you go ahead and do them all. I don't want to do any more. There will be an answer key so you can check your work. So I recommend you do that. Let's do one of the other sets so you know exactly what I'm talking about, what I'm asking for. So this one requires you to do labeling. Let's go ahead and label just the first one. So we have here a C to a G. And so I am asking you to label if 2 notes are given, then define the intervals, meaning just write what it is up top. So we say, okay, C to G. So first we count. That's how we get the number, right? So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We say, oh, it's a fifth of some kind. It could be augmented or diminished. It cannot be major or minor. Don't be writing major or minor stuff. Okay, so we say, okay, we're going to hit Control K so that we can type in our intervals. And we say, okay, this is going to be a perfect fifth. And I know it's a perfect fifth. You might know it's a perfect fifth. But let's go ahead and double check it. So we say C minor second, because we're starting on C. That's our bass note. So we're starting from C, and we're going up. So we're going to go minor second, minor third, major third, perfect fourth, tritone, perfect fifth. That's a G natural. That's a G natural. We are good to go. So that is how you will define these things. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? As my math teacher would say. So there you go. That's the rule of 9. That's also, I didn't really point out too clearly, but when I say the given bass note, now you know that's where the rule of 9 thing comes into play. I was doing that a little bit to clear that up. You're gonna name these. I gave you some challenge ones for fun, like something more. This one's a fun one. There's some other ones, and so that's that. If you see anything that is wonky, maybe I mislabeled something. I did go through kind of quickly and write in the answers. So if you see something that you're just like, hey, wait, this doesn't add up, go ahead, just drop a comment or send me an email or something, and I will update it so that that mistake has been fixed. There shouldn't be any mistakes though. So, okay, that's that. If you have any questions about this, let me know. I know it's quite a bit of new information, especially in some of the weirder stuff. So I will be making a worksheet specifically for weirder stuff. Subscribe, support me on Patreon, and have a blessed day.